Hey folks, John Hazlett here, Ashland Fly Shop. We're going to talk about the how, when, where, why, what, spay casting. What is it? You know, we do a lot of technical casting and fishing stuff, but we really haven't done an intro. What is it? Well, so here you go. Basically, spay casting is also called two-handed casting. So as opposed to overhead casting with a single-handed rod, we use two hands. And spay casts are waterborne casts. So we make what might look like an energized roll cast that allows us to fish in tight quarters without a back cast and do other things that we can't do with a single-handed rod unless we do a single-hand spay cast, and that's a whole different topic. So spay casting basically has three components regardless of the cast. Every cast has an anchor, every cast has a D-loop, and every cast has a forward cast. So every cast has three parts, and how we set the cast up is a little bit different, but that's what makes a spay cast. So the anchor gives us the grip, the traction, holds the load of our D-loop. Our D-loop is, in essence, the back cast of our spay cast, and the forward cast is similar to that of a single-handed rod, except we have two hands on the rod that we use to deliver the cast. Rods in general are 11 to 15 feet. We fish a lot of rods from 12 to 13 and a half. And so there's a wide array of rods. We fish them for trout, steelhead. Spay casting started on the Spey River in Scotland 200 years ago for Atlantic salmon. That's where spay casting was born. So I've got a two-handed rod here. It's a Sage X 12-foot 7 weight. And so every spay rod has a bottom grip. That's where our bottom hand goes. And so when we make a spay cast, we have two hands on the rod. In the Northwest, we fish a lot of shooting heads. So shooting head is just the head of the line has a loop on the back that's connected to a shooting line. And then the head systems we use, we always put a tip on. If it's a Skagit line, we put a sink tip. If it's a Scandi line, we put a leader or Versa leader. But most of the lines we fish, probably 90% of them are head systems. So we've got the head, we have a tip on the front, short leader, and a fly. It's pretty simple. Traditional spay lines tend to be longer and integrated like a regular fly line. The running line is connected to the head. And traditional spay lines, the head of the line, are up to, 70, 80 feet long. And typically those are used with longer spay rods. But for general fishing purposes, ease of casting, we use shorter heads like Skagits or Scandis here in the Northwest. Those are the most prevalent. So you might ask, why spay cast? Well, for one, we can attain greater distance, which isn't always what we need to do, but with a two-handed rod, we can definitely get more distance, and it's easier to do that. It's about covering water efficiently, because when you spay cast, there's no back cast, there's no false cast. You just cast and you're fishing. So it's very efficient for covering water. Line control is huge. So with these longer rods, we can mend. It's easier to mend with a 12, 13-foot rod than it is with a 9-foot rod, just because we have more leverage in the mend. And then also line control. So once we've mended, we can hold the rod out and slow the fly down. Line control is huge, especially for fish like steelhead, where you really need to slow the fly down to get them to bite. And then it also makes casting sink tips or sinking lines and bigger flies way easier than with a single-handed rod. So sink tips, big flies, way easier, which makes it more fun. And of course, we wouldn't spay cast if it wasn't fun. There's a bunch of different spay casts, and as you get into it and you learn other casts, it's just fun to cast. And sometimes, a steelhead will interrupt your casting lesson. So it's fun, efficient, we can cover water, line control, all those things are why we use the two-handed rod, including fishing in tight quarters. If you're up against a bank and you've got no room for a back cast, you can still make a spay cast. and that's critical for steelhead, especially, and Atlantic salmon, because you might be fishing down a bank that's brushy, or you just don't have a lot of room. So fishing in tight quarters definitely plays in. So we talked about what it is, where do we do it, and for what fish. In the Northwest, we do a ton of spey casting, spey fishing, two-handed casting for steelhead. And we've got a lot of great steelhead rivers in the Northwest. We fish for summer steelhead, winter steelhead, and so that's something we've been doing for several decades. It started in Scotland on the River Spey almost 200 years ago. So that's the homeland of spey casting, where it was invented, and the target species there for the most part is Atlantic salmon. But what's happened recently, from the Rockies to the West Coast and beyond, are trout speys. So now we have trout speys starting at 2 weight. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5 weight little trout speys that you can swing a soft tackle, pitch a big dry fly, or streamer fish with. So that's super fun on the right water types using trout speys. So that's opened up a lot of cool fishing for the guy who wants to use a two-handed rod. So, with all the rods and lines, it's really up to your imagination at this point what you do with a two-handed rod. If you're interested in trying it out, we have a lot of resources at the shop. We have a ton of videos you can watch, but we do an event every month. It's called Third Sunday Spay. Will, the shop owner, does it. It's at Tuville Park every third Sunday of every month. So the third Sunday of every month, 10 a.m., Tuville Park. If you want to get your feet wet, check it out, try out a rod. It's a free class, lasts 2-3 hours. That's at Tuville Park every third Sunday, and there's more information about that on our website. Check out all our videos on YouTube. We've got a ton of casting videos, like I said. Any questions you have about spey casting, give us a holler at the shop. Happy to help.